Yo, what's up guys? It's Sauceman K, and today we're here for a very special video. It's currently May 9th, otherwise known as Goku Day, and I thought it'd be pretty fitting to make a video about my favorite character in anime and the GOAT of Dragon Ball, Son Goku. So, despite many of the problems that I've outlined in many of my previous videos, I still love and appreciate Dragon Ball. You know, I do call myself a Dragon Ball fan. So I think it's probably about time that I make a video talking positively about the series, rather than just memeing about the scaling or, just hating on the show. Throughout your time as an anime fan or media consumer in general, you've more than likely come across people discussing Goku and his character, and how he's either, one of the best characters to ever grace the planet, or how he's overrated trash and he's just, a terrible protagonist, he doesn't have any swag, anything like that, And as a decently unbiased Dragon Ball fan myself, self-proclaimed, I believe I can actually deliver a pretty accurate answer to that question. Some of the most common issues that I actually see outlined with Goku is, his lack of affection for his family, or, reliability as a father for Gohan specifically, because no one really cares about Goten, unfortunately. But I think that these issues are kind of exacerbated in DBS, because that's where people think that Goku's kind of at his worst in terms of, like, a character, right? They think he's kind of, like, hollow, he's not really, like, he doesn't really have any, like, core traits that he would have in Dragon Ball Z in Super, at least, that's what most people think. And I won't really be talking about Dragon Ball Super, for a major portion of this video. It's mainly just going to be, like, Dragon Ball Z related, because that's honestly where most of our Goku story is, unfortunately. Not to say that Dragon Ball Super doesn't have anything for, like, Goku's story. It's actually, like, kind of where it wraps up, or kind of where it concludes, at least right now, because that's where the anime ends. But, Dragon Ball Z does have the main stuff, so that is what I'm going to be focusing on. So, I think it's probably good to just start off with his role as, like, a family man, and how a lot of people seemingly just miss the fact that he does actually have the makings of a good husband and father. But, due to how the series actually just, operates, how things played out, he's not able to just, like, be the family man, take his, family out to picnics and shit like that all the time. Like, he's the defender of Earth, right? He has to be there and train all the time and be ready for that shit. He has to actually be able to take on these threats. So, if he's dead or something because he just got done fighting a massive threat to the planet and he can't, be a husband or whatever, it's like, is that really him being a bad dad? Like, no, obviously not. Like, when Goku has the chance to be a good dad, he is. But, I'll stop ranting and actually get into the points. So one of the easiest ways to actually just show that Goku, he cares about his family, he has the good makings of a dad, he actually has love for these people, is when, and funnily enough, this is an example from Dragon Ball Super, which I said I wasn't really going to be talking about, but it's from the Goku Black arc, where Goku finds out that Goku Black and Zamasu killed his family, right? And we get one of the coolest scenes in the entire series, where Goku's like, oh, it's time to pay, or whatever the fuck, right? And then he fucking screams, and then he's like, he like grabs the key sword in his chest and like snaps it, and he fucking backhands Zamasu through a building and like pieces up Goku Black, And that all comes from him learning that his family, not even his real family, just a different alternate timeline version, was killed, right? And it's like, we see Vegeta's same reaction to that same information when he finds out that Black killed future Bulma, and he just doesn't care, right? He's like, alright, whatever, that's not my Bulma, like, who cares, right? So it's just like, yeah, maybe you could say that's a stupid moment for Goku, because he's mad about a version of his family that's not even his, but it's like, I mean, you can't say that Goku doesn't care about his family, or it's just like some hollow shell of like a caring person or something like that, or is like a sociopath, when he very clearly does love and appreciate his family members. Like, it's not even a question, and I think it is really funny too, because like everyone's always like, oh, Vegeta's the family man, Family Guy Vegeta, and it's just like he doesn't even care. But then Goku just, he tweaks out, he crashes out on Zamasu, and I think it's clear, he obviously cares about his family in that. Another pretty easy example to go over is how Goku treated Gohan, right? And that one is actually a little bit controversial, because people see that and they're like, wow, he's super obsessed with battle, he tried to see Gohan fight Cell, and he didn't really care if Gohan got hurt or anything like that. But to be honest, like, that's just not even true, right? Like, did you guys watch the series? Right? Like, it's true that Gohan was the person that Goku sent out to fight Cell. It is true that, Gohan wanted or didn't want to fight Cell, but the reasoning that Goku actually had Gohan fight Cell wasn't because he just didn't give a shit about Gohan and thought it'd be funny to watch him die or something like that. It's because while training in the time chamber, he realized that Gohan was the only person capable of actually fighting Cell, right? So then you say, oh, well then why did he give him a sensu bean? Well, Goku realized that in order for him to actually beat Cell, he would have to unlock his hidden power, in which case Gohan would need to be pressed in battle, right? Now, the issue isn't in that thinking, because that's true, right? Gohan did need to be pressed in battle to unlock that rage, and that's how he beat Cell. So that's the only way they could have won, unless, you know, they were going to do like the fusion dance or some shit like 7 years in advance. But the main point, right, the main issue is that Gohan didn't want to fight Cell, right? And that's the issue. It's not that, oh, Goku just didn't care about his son at all. He obviously did care about his son. The moment that Piccolo pointed out this, you know, blunder to him, he's like, holy shit, Krillin, give me a sensu bean. You know, I'm going to run out there and help him, right? But it's like, the issue is that he just didn't really connect with Gohan on that personal level, right? He didn't really understand that he didn't value fighting like that. And just because Goku misunderstands the reasoning behind why Gohan does something doesn't make him a bad parent inherently, you know what I mean? Like, a bad parent would understand why something is happening with their kid and still choose to do something else regardless of what they thought was best. But we see that this isn't even the case with Goku, right? Like I said earlier, the moment he realizes, or is at least, you know, enlightened by Piccolo, that Gohan doesn't want to do this, right? He tries to step in and help. And we even see earlier, in, you know, with like scenes with like Kid Gohan and like Dragon Ball Z, right? Like, it's not like Goku tells him to like ignore Chi-Chi and to like stop studying and, you know, to, you know, forget his dreams and become a fighter and make, you know, prize money. Like, he wants Gohan to become a scholar. He wants Gohan to do what makes him happy. He wants Gohan to have a family. He's happy when Gohan has a kid. Like, if you honestly think that Goku just doesn't care about his family, just doesn't care about his son, like, you just have no argument. Like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You can't point to a single thing in Dragon Ball Z without, you know, really misinterpreting what's actually being shown and come away with that conclusion. The best thing you can have is the Gohan thing, but, you know, that is a silly, like, not a silly, but it's like, it's a bad thing for Goku, right? But it doesn't make him a bad parent overall, right? Like, people can make mistakes. Just because a parent makes a mistake doesn't mean that they're overall a bad parent for, you know, the rest of the time. Like, that's just stupid, right? If you think that, I mean, maybe some shit went down in your personal life and you're like kind of salty, you know, like, who hurt you, bro? But I don't know. But another thing to mention too is that Goku only pushed Gohan because he knew that Gohan could beat Cell. Not even just because, oh, he sensed his power. He made like the estimate, like, oh, Gohan's power is, you know, 750 million, and then Cell's is only 500 million, you know, random numbers, by the way. But, you know, it's more so like, he was in the exact position that Gohan was, you know, when he was a kid. Because when he was fighting Piccolo, well, I guess I'll say Piccolo Jr. and King Piccolo, because he was actually in that position twice. Against normal King Piccolo, Goku was down three limbs. I think he could only use like one leg, or no, he could only use one arm, and that's how he propelled himself up into the air with the Kamehameha and then one-shot King Piccolo. So he's been in that position as a kid, and then as a teenager, he also did something similar, where I don't think he could use any of his limbs, because I think Piccolo Jr. had broken all of them, and he still came out on top, right? And there's a lot of reasonings for this. Akira Toriyama breaks it down. He mentions how ki, it's like, it comes from like your spirit, which it's like your will to do something. Then it comes from like your actual like strength, and then obviously like the actual like power of like your energy itself or something like that. I can show like the actual like scan so you guys know what I'm talking about like verbatim. But basically the reasoning behind why why Goku is so, you know, dead set on Gohan doing this is because he very like clearly went through basically the exact same thing that Gohan is, okay? Gohan against Cell, he has the power to beat Cell, but, you know, he's doubting himself and he's injured, you know? The difference is that Goku wants Gohan to believe in himself because that's what he, you know, needs to do in order to be able to actually, like, you know, harness that power and win, right? And he knows that he can do that because obviously he did that as himself, right? Piccolo and Piccolo Jr. So that's why Goku's so dead set on trying to get Gohan to get this win on Cell. It's because he's not just like, oh, you know, I really hope that Gohan can. Like, he really knows Gohan can, right? Like, he has that intuition. He's seen it for himself. He's done similar things himself. Like, you know, it's not like Gohan, or it's not like Goku was just like, you know, hoping and praying that Gohan could just get the dub, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like if you have any issues with that, or you have any contentions, like, you just don't really know what you're talking about, because, like, nothing I'm saying is really controversial. It's just all pretty basic stuff that's in the show, you know what I mean? I could go into more detail about how the moment that Goku saw that Gohan didn't actually want to fight Cell, he just tried to, like, rush it and help him, or you know, how Goku gave up his life and everything that he had ever known on Earth in a moment's notice, you know, just to save Gohan from Cell's explosion. But it's pretty obvious that, you know, a lot of what Goku did, if not every action of what Goku did for the most part, was done, you know, out of setting an example for his son, you know, hoping that he would live up to, you know, be the successor of Earth.
I'll remember when we were up against Frieza and knew we couldn't win, how you just walked right up to him. And whenever things seem tough for me, I think of you walking forward like that, and it makes me strong.
And I feel like probably one of the hardest things, you know, about growing up, especially like as a kid, you know, is having like a pillar or like a role model, something to like, you know, base yourself around. And Goku spent his entire life being that for Gohan, so that when he grew up, he would have something to aspire to, and, you know, have something to base himself off of. And we see that later in the Buu Saga, you know, that's why Gohan chooses to wear Goku's gi and all that. So, you know, pretty good stuff for Goku. He spent his entire life, you know, just being a pillar for Gohan, you know, obviously as a good dad, you know, I don't know why people don't think he's a good father. And then obviously he is a good husband, you know, he loves his wife, all that stuff. Maybe you could make some arguments for Goten, because honestly the series does a pretty bad job showing Goku actually caring for Goten, but we do get that one scene in the Buu Saga where he meets him at the tournament, and that was pretty peak. So I think it's safe to say that Goku does love his family. I think it's safe to say that he's also a good dad as well. So. Oh, and husband, same thing basically, but you know. And I think I'll follow that up, that segment up with a pretty similarly themed topic, that being how Goku is always called a static character, you know. And the definition for that static character is it's defined as a character that doesn't change from the start of the story. Despite the adventure, their personality, situation, and appearance will always stay the same, you know. And you might hear that, you might say, well, you know, Goku's, you know, his appearance is pretty much the same, you know, his personality is pretty much the same, you know, his situation is pretty much the same, you know. And it's like, you know, you might be right at first glance, but if you actually sit down for 2 seconds and like think about the show, you know, and don't let that brain rot actually get to your head, you might actually be able to see like what's actually being shown underneath, you know, the surface layer, you know. So to be brief, Goku's appearance and overall personality, they obviously don't change very much, right? Like if you were to take you and just like show yourself in like 10 years, right? For example, like if you're like 18 and then show yourself when you're, you know, 28. Right? Would you be drastically different? You know, maybe if you had like an insane, you know, life-altering experience. But generally, people don't really drastically change that much, you know. So for Goku to stay pretty similar, you know, to how he was at the start, towards the end, it's like, that's not abnormal. It's not bad. That's not like a weird thing. But even so, I don't think that's really what people mean when they talk about Goku. When people say that Goku's static, they usually talk about how Goku has no development or, you know, ideologic changes throughout the show, which just isn't really the case, right? You know, a character remaining happy and determined throughout the series doesn't mean that the character has no development or a change in outlook. And suggests so, it's just like, are you even watching the show? Like, it's pretty ignorant and just kind of ignores the entire series. So I'll just, you know, I'll stop gassing up my arguments at this point, just explain, you know, the point, which is, you know, at the core of Goku's character, yes, he is the same, you know, he still loves fighting, he still loves eating, he spends time with his family, all that, blah, 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 blah. But what does change, right, is how Goku deals with his opposition, right, his outlook on his enemies, and, you know, how he actually handles them in battle, right. And if you're being honest, in a battle manga, right, the battle manga, you know, how the main character fights his opponents is kind of like one of the only things that matters, right? Like, if you look at Naruto, for example, right, another similar shonen, the whole main theme, the whole main draw of the series is how the main character Naruto fights and interacts with the main the main villains, right? Sometimes main characters in Sasuke's case, but the villains of that show, you know, points out their personal contradictions, shows how they themselves don't actually like what they're doing or don't support what they're doing, and then, you know, they do that through their fight, and then, you know, they're friends after, right? And that's just kind of how most battle shonens work. So for Goku's only real main change to be how he deals with fighting his opponents, it's like, okay, that's not a bad thing. That's kind of how it needs to be for the genre, right? And that's not like downplaying Goku's slice of life moments, right? Like, he definitely does have some goofy, funny stuff, some, you know, lovable, wholesome moments, you know, wholesome Chungus 100 type shit. That's in Dragon Ball, you know, it's in Dragon Ball Z a little bit, and even in Super for some parts, right? But to be real, right, nobody really watches Dragon Ball for that stuff, you know? Like, we see, like, Dragon Ball Z is the most popular, Dragon Ball Super is the most popular, you know, in terms of, like, how many people talk about it, how many people watch it. Not to say that Dragon Ball is bad, but, you know, people are there for the action, right? So getting on point, or back on point, right? Goku's outlook in terms of foes is the main thing that changes throughout the show. At the start of Dragon Ball, Goku is of the mindset that there isn't anything that he can't do on his own, right? It's not that he's really cocky, but he's more so just like he believes in his own strength above all. And rightfully so. He slaughtered the entire Red Ribbon Army and all of its generals and assassins, right? He beat the Turtle Hermit and pretty much every other fighter on the planet with just his own potential, right? He eventually ends up beating King Piccolo, which culminates in Teen Goku fighting Piccolo Jr., and once again, he beats him with his own power. And like I mentioned earlier, he does it without any of his limbs. He beats both of them with one arm. He beats the first one with one arm, and then Piccolo Jr. with no arms or legs. He just flies into him and headbutts him, you know? Just with his own power, right? It was to the point where Kami, the god of Earth, he intervenes during Piccolo and Goku's match, right? He blocks a punch for Goku. And because of this, Goku actually lets Piccolo just slug him and just punch him straight in the face because of it, you know? He was dead set on winning by himself. But this theme is pretty much dropped right away in Dragon Ball Z. We see two of the strongest beings in, the entire history of the planet, pretty much. The strongest under the heavens, both effortlessly get dropped by Raditz, right? The, new being from beyond the stars, right? That's what the whole narrative is. And the point in Raditz just coming in and swagging all over the, Dragon Ball Part 1's contents, right, is to show that the one-man army days are fading, right? The strongest, Goku, the strongest Piccolo, anyone else from Dragon Ball, anyone from those, 300-plus episodes would get destroyed by Raditz, right? And it's showing that, they need to work together. That's the whole point. And that's further shown with Goku's fight with Vegeta, right? In which Goku is able to overpower Nappa and Vegeta momentarily through his own efforts with the Kaioken. But the series, funnily enough, kind of personifies the effect of the one-man army mentality by having Goku receive a shit ton of damage from the Kaioken, showing that if you try to do everything in your own, you're only going to end up in destroying yourself, right? So Goku ends up crippled and isn't able to fight Vegeta, and it's only through the combined efforts of the remaining Z Warriors and the energy of Earth that Vegeta is beaten. Once again proving that, above all, the deciding factor against the threat of evil is the combined efforts of Goku and his friends. And I think that point's kind of important to address as well, because it's not like Goku and the others can't receive their own personal growth or power boosts if in the end they win due to teamwork, right? Like, Goku's able to grow stronger and get Kaioken, Piccolo's able to train and get stronger, but that doesn't mean that in the end of the day they're going to win because of their own power, right? The whole point is that they need to work together. And since their own personal progression is tailored to their own characters, it doesn't really undermine the overall theme, right? Like, Goku being stronger than Vegeta with the Kaioken times 4, and then him losing, right, to Grade 8 Vegeta doesn't mean that, the teamwork narrative is bullshit. What actually matters is individual strength because Vegeta beat Goku, right? It just shows that, or further emboldens the theme, right? That the character's true strength is the trust that they have in each other, right? Them working together, right? Because Goku failed by doing everything on his own, right? That's the whole theme being presented, right? And, Goku's kind of like aware of this idea, but he hasn't like fully grasped onto it and like realized that that's his true strength yet. So he spares Vegeta out of his own personal desire to fight him again, and, we move on to Namek. And I do want to address real quick that, Goku sparing Vegeta isn't super bad, right? People might call him stupid for it, but when you really get down to it, right? Like, yes, it is selfish, right? But in actuality, I don't think Vegeta killed a single person when he went to Earth, right? It was literally all Nappa. Like, when they landed, Nappa turned that city to a glass floor. That is true. And Nappa was responsible for the deaths of a lot of people. And I think you could maybe say the Cyberman did one, but, sure, like, Nappa commanded the Cybermen. And by that logic, Vegeta commanded, Nappa, but then, Frieza commanded Vegeta, so who's really responsible? But the point is that Vegeta didn't personally kill any of one of Goku's friends, so he had no real personal grudge against him. So that's why he was willing to let Vegeta walk again, whereas maybe he wasn't going to be so lenient towards Nappa. But even then, he did let Nappa live, so maybe Goku's just not really a murderer at this point in the story. Or at least anymore, because when we saw how he dealt with, I think it was, Tambourine? He just kicked his head and it exploded. So, pretty goated. Anyway, fast forward to the Namek Saga, and we have Goku versus Frieza. And once again, at first glance, you may see Goku versus Frieza having a 1v1 and say, wow, Sauce Man, are you sure that teamwork is the message, But I assure you, my little brainlet, okay, the story is consistent, I promise, alright? The entire build-up to the Goku vs. Frieza fight involves Gohan, Krillin, and Vegeta, Piccolo, Dende, everybody on Namek basically, working together in order to fight Frieza and his soldiers. And it's only because of their combined efforts that Goku was able to even heal so he could be able to be in the position to fight Frieza. Once he does arrive on the battlefield, he ends up going Kaioken times 20, and, surprise, surprise, to no avail. It ends up just, hurting himself, and Goku spends a lot of the fight just getting his ass beat, to be pretty honest. But he ends up using the Spirit Bomb, and that whole exchange of him losing in the Kaioken is another instance of the character's, own personal journey or power not being enough to end the the big bad, right? Like, obviously, if Goku just came in, and just one shot Frieza with the Kaioken times 20, like, that wouldn't really be satisfying and wouldn't really show any growth or progression, right? So he ends up trying to use the Spirit Bomb, which once again he used on Vegeta, but unlike Vegeta, it doesn't actually really do anything significant at all, right? And with that, you might be scratching your head, you might be saying, well, if Goku's own personal power isn't enough to do anything, right? And, the Spirit Bomb didn't do anything, right? Like, nothing they're doing is working. Like, the teamwork hasn't, done anything, like, Sauceman. Like, what's happening, right? So with that, you may be scratching your head. You may be thinking, well, Sauceman, if the Spirit Bomb failed, then how does your teamwork narrative fit, The teamwork failed, right? And, yeah, you're right, to an extent, the teamwork did fail. But I think the theme being presented throughout Dragon Ball isn't really like teamwork equals the win, right? It's more complex. Not to be, gassing myself up or the narrative, but it is a little bit more nuanced than that. The way that I would describe it is more so like the trust, the power, the energy of your friends or whatever. It becomes fuel in order for you to persevere, right? And that's exactly what Goku does on Namek. So it's only because of the bonds and relations that he has with Krillin and Piccolo that he was able to feel such immense rage at their deaths. Or I guess not Piccolo's death, because he technically did live, but Goku didn't know that. And because of this, right, he achieves the pinnacle of Saiyan power at this point, for what we knew. With golden hair and a flaming aura, Goku's transformation into a Super Saiyan is literally him engulfed in a power achieved through his connections. There's a reason why when Gohan wants to go Super Saiyan, Goku tells him to picture the loss of his loved ones, and that's also the reason why there's such an emphasis on the scene where Frieza mocks Krillin's death, right? Because the bonds that Goku makes are the catalysts for him becoming the most powerful version of himself, a Super Saiyan. With this power, Goku defeats Frieza, and all is good until the Cell Saga. I'm going to be pretty brief for this section since, I'm going to be honest, I don't really want this video to be an hour and a half long. But basically, the Cell Saga is basically the Frieza Saga, but for Gohan. In the sense that the arc has a villain tailor-made for Gohan that he needs to awaken and become the best version of himself, similar to Goku, in order to defeat. This being Cell, of course, right? The ultimate android, comprised of the previous generation's greatest warriors. And for the unconfident Gohan, unsure of his own power, there's no better opponent. Skipping over most of the filler of the arc, we end up in the Time Chamber, in which Gohan is only able to reach the level of Super Saiyan with Goku's own guidance and love of his friends, as mentioned earlier, right? He pictures the loss of his loved ones and friends, and with that he's able to awaken into the strongest version of himself at the time, right? A Super Saiyan. During this training, Goku sees Gohan's potential and realizes that he has the power to defeat Cell. And this combined with his earlier heart virus ailment are the two deciding factors in Goku's choice to make Goku the new Guardian of Earth. Gohan eventually faces off against Cell, in which he's reluctant to fight. Once Goku realizes this, he immediately wants to intervene, but actually just isn't able to do anything, right? Which, that's just another point against those people who think that he has no love for his son, right? Like, obviously Goku cares about his son. Why would he try to run in there and fight Cell or want to fight Cell if he just didn't care? You know what I mean? But eventually, after this all happens, Gohan ends up going Super Saiyan 2 and is able to defeat Cell. But not for good. When Gohan goes Super Saiyan 2, he's overtaken with the power and becomes arrogant, unlike Goku, which is why he doesn't have the makings to become the Guardian of Earth, unfortunately. But that's another point for later. So, yeah, because of this, Goku has to end up teleporting Cell away, and then he ends up dying. Cell comes back, And it's only through Gohan being coached through the afterlife, right? Goku ends up telling him, unleash your power, all this, that, and the other, and then the other is helping him through, blasting Cell, that Gohan is able to actually overcome Cell and defeat him once and for all. Showing that it wasn't just Gohan's power. Obviously, Gohan had the power to beat Cell and win, but he couldn't do it on his own. He needed the encouragement of his friends. He needed the trust of his friends. He needed the help from his teammates. All that stuff, showing that once again, right? The narrative is consistent. It's the teamwork narrative, and that's been the case since Raditz. And after we move to move through the Cell Saga, we end up in the Boo Saga. Alright, and the Boo Saga is my favorite saga in Dragon Ball Z. I think it has the best action. I think it's the most entertaining for both comedy and action. It does the most for Goku's character. It does the most for Vegeta's character. It does the most for Gohan's character. It introduces the most characters, funnily enough, or at least new cast characters, because we get like Gotenks, Vegito, we get Goten and Trunks, right, all those guys. So it's just like, I don't know, man, the Boo Saga, it's amazing in so many ways, but I'm not here to just rant specifically about why the Boo Saga is goated. Just wanted to share why I like it so much. So, getting back on track, I think I should probably talk about the arc and its villain and how it relates to the show, So, for starters, Majin Buu is the best villain in Dragon Ball Z, like, period. Yeah, I think that's true, 100%. People look at Fat Buu and they write off the whole arc. They say, oh wow, look at this stupid pink wad of bubblegum. But I think if you take 2 seconds to actually understand it, and make sense of the character and what's trying to be shown to the audience, things actually click and start to make sense, right? So Majin Buu is described as an ancient entity that existed as long as the universe itself. Thought to be the origin of evil, Majin Buu is known as the most chaotic and evil entity of all time, basically evil incarnate. But Buu wasn't always like this, he was once just Buu. It wasn't just Majin Buu. He was just just normal Buu, right? And just like his body composition suggests, he himself is very moldable. It's explained that throughout his travels throughout the universe, every time that Buu destroyed a world, he took a piece of it with him. That's what Buhan, or I think Buu says. And I guess we could take this literally and think that Buhan just keeps like a satchel of like space rocks around with him, but I think you're supposed to like read in between the lines a little bit and try to like piece together what he means, which is like every time that he destroys a planet or a world or a solar system, whatever, he takes a piece of that world or civilization with him, and he becomes corrupted by it, right? So over time, Buu, this neutral entity, slowly became warped by the evils of the universe and eventually became the pure evil force of nature that we see in Dragon Ball Z. And through his cunning strategies, he's able to outwit Gohan and all the other Z fighters. Yes, outwit them. He outsmarts Gohan just pretty objectively. He's able to get the upper hand in battle in a lot of different instances, and in doing so, he actually gains the memories of Gohan, Piccolo, and Goten and Trunks. And yet, despite this, he's still completely dead set on killing not only just the people on Earth, but the entire universe as well. Like I said, pure evil. So you have this representation of, pure evil that's plagued the Dragon Ball universe since its creation, and was also responsible for wiping out the hierarchy of gods. It's shown that when Kid Buu kills, I think it's 4 of the 5 Supreme Kais, right? So it's like this evil force of the universe that's been, plaguing it since its creation. It's killed all the gods, all that shit. And it's now it's on Earth. So now it's time to see how Goku and gang, confront and handle the threat, right? As they do every other thing. So how does Goku handle the threat? Well, Goku's Goku, so he was able to defeat Buu at the time, but due to there being 7 years, of there just, being peace, he doesn't really have a reason to change his, opinion, right? Earth's been pretty peaceful, so he's, more worried about the successors and, the next generation. So he chooses to, leave Buu for the next generation so that they can, build themselves up and actually take him down. After all, at the time that he actually fought Fat Buu, he had less than a day left on Earth, right? So before he went away forever, by the way, because after he, he dies, he goes on to the next generation. He can't just come back to Earth after that, or at least at the time he couldn't, So it makes sense that, he'd want to spare Buu for the next generation, since that's probably the last time he'd ever be able to interact with them. So how does Gohan handle Buu? Well, he's been slacking with his training. and therefore he's unable to do anything to Boo. He's apparently weaker than he was against Cell, according to Vegeta, right? So there's Goku's ultimate answer against evil, the next generation's ultimate warrior, the true successor, and he was completely useless against Boo. That's what I was mentioning earlier. He's not able to fight Boo. He doesn't have the makings of the Guardian of Earth, unfortunately for Goku. Gohan was not the man that he was looking for. What about Goku's rival, Vegeta? Surely, after 7 years of training and the will of a true warrior, unlike Gohan, he would be enough to defeat Boo. Wrong. He poured every ounce of his being into the fight, and Boo still killed him. Or I guess he died to Boo. Whatever, right? What about Goten and Trunks? They're the next generation, and if you know anything about Naruto, you know that the next generation always surpasses the previous one. And, as that rule states, they have even more potential than Gohan. So surely, if they were to fuse into the Ultimate Warrior, they would be enough to stop Boo too, right? No, they failed as well. So what's the point with all this? Well, the idea is that Boo, or the evil of the universe, is too great to beat alone. Gohan isn't the kind of person who can keep up with the persistence of that, level of threat. Vegeta can't reach the heights of the strongest in order to perform on that level. Goten and Trunks, they aren't mature enough to actually use the power that they have. And Goku just isn't present at the time to actually fight, So all the solutions of the past have failed. And what's left? Well, after Goten and Trunks fail, Boo is so powerful that not even Goku as a Super Saiyan 3 could defeat him. So is that it? Does Boo win and Dragon Ball end? No. The answer is obvious. The true answer is teamwork. And trust in your comrades. And that's what Vegito, the ultimate master of the universe, represents in the story. His existence is only made possible through the perfect fusion of two lifelong rivals finally willing to put aside their differences and work together. And after they do, they dominate Boo. They completely outclass him in every regard, and Vegito's field day on Boo may as well be the literal representation of good combating evil. However, they end up defusing, and there isn't a real story reason for why this happens, like narratively speaking. Goku and Vegeta beating Boo through fusion would actually embody the theme of teamwork, and it would be pretty satisfying, so why did they defuse? I don't really think there's a major reason, to be honest. While writing this video, I kind of thought of one. It's possible that Toriyama didn't want Vegito to beat Boo because he thought that it would leave Vegeta in a weird spot, character-wise, right? Most of the other characters wouldn't really be affected by Vegito beating Boo, but Vegeta still hasn't reflected on himself, right, or Goku's journey, and admitted that Goku was number one. So, and plus they're still kind of like Vegeta still mad at Goku for what he did with Super Saiyan 3 in their fight, right? So think of Vegito defusing as Vegeta kind of just wanting more character development. But as mentioned, Vegito defuses, and Goku and Vegeta end up fighting Kid Buu. And once again, they are outclassed and beaten, right? Showing that, once again, no lone warrior can stand up to the evil of the universe. While hopes are down, and time is seemingly out for Goku and the rest of the people on the Supreme Kai's planet, Vegeta decides to use the Spirit Bomb as a last-ditch effort to beat Buu. And this moment basically puts a cherry on top of the show and, Goku's character as a whole, right? The Spirit Bomb is literally making the trust of others into your own power. It's only through Goku obtaining the trust of everyone in the universe, including old foes and enemies alike, that he's able to overcome evil incarnate and become the strongest in the universe. And all in all, the story's consistent, At times you can make arguments for it not being so due to the vague interpretations that you can make through, misinterpreting stuff that's being presented. But generally, it's not the case, right? Goku as a character is pretty grounded and not overstated, but this doesn't mean that he has no character, no progression. It doesn't mean that he has inconsistent writing. It doesn't mean that he's a static character. Of course, how good he is as a character to you is subjective, right? And I'm not going to say that he's objectively some amazing, written masterpiece, right? But I'll let the fact that every major battle shonen takes inspiration from Goku and his series speak for the fact that, at the very least, he is a good character.